In the midst of a world that often feels divided, there are stories that remain largely untold, stories that speak to a deeper truth about the struggles for justice, equality, and human dignity. Today, I invite you to walk with me through two such stories of Ethiopian Jews in Israel and Afro-Iranians in Iran. These are communities whose lives have been shaped by centuries of resilience in the face of injustice. But even as they continue to fight for their rightful place in society, their struggles are often overlooked, ignored, or silenced by the very systems that promised them hope. For Ethiopian Jews, brought to Israel with the promise of a land of refuge, their arrival was not the beginning of a new chapter. It was the beginning of a harsh reality. Despite being promised unity, they were instead met with systemic racism, exclusion, and violence. From the streets of Tel Aviv to the borders of their own country, they face racial profiling, segregation in schools, and discrimination in housing and employment. The tragic death of Solomon Tekke, an Ethiopian Israeli who was killed by police, is just one painful example of how deeply entrenched racism is in Israeli society. His death, though not unique, ignited protests and calls for justice. But the silence that followed was deafening. This story is not just about Solomon. It is about the countless others whose voices have been silenced, whose pain has been ignored. Across the border in Iran, Afro-Iranians, descendants of African slaves brought to Iran centuries ago, continue to live in the shadows, excluded from the nation's historical narrative. Their struggles are largely invisible to the public eye, their contributions erased from history. Despite their deep roots in Iranian soil, they remain on the fringes, denied equal opportunities in education, employment, and healthcare. But their story is also one of strength, resilience, and unyielding resistance. Though they are hidden from the national conversation, Afro-Iranians continue to push back against the forces that seek to erase them, demanding recognition and the rights that should be theirs by birthright. These stories, though separated by geography, are linked by a common thread: the fight for dignity, the fight to be seen, and the fight to be treated as equals. The struggles of Ethiopian Israelis and Afro-Iranians are not isolated. They are part of a much larger global story of racial injustice that continues to affect black communities around the world. This is a fight that transcends borders, politics, and nationalities. It is a fight that asks us to recognize the humanity of every person, regardless of their skin color, background, or heritage. As we explore these stories, we must ask ourselves, how long will we allow these injustices to continue? How long will we remain silent while entire communities are erased, excluded, and oppressed? It is time to stand together, to raise our voices in solidarity, and to demand that the world recognizes the dignity and humanity of every person, everywhere. Let's explore these stories, not just as distant examples of injustice, but as calls to action for all of us, wherever we are, to create a world where everyone is valued, heard, and treated with the respect they deserve. In the vast landscape of global struggles, some voices are drowned out, their stories fading into the background. These stories, however, are the heartbeats of communities who have been silenced by forces beyond their control. Today, we dive into the untold stories of Ethiopian Jews in Israel and Afro-Iranians in Iran, two communities that stand as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. Despite the hardships they face, despite the systems that continue to push them to the margins, these communities continue to rise, to resist, and to demand what is rightfully theirs: their humanity, their dignity, and their place in society. In Israel, Ethiopian Jews were welcomed with open arms in a historic operation designed to reunite them with their Jewish heritage. But for many, the promise of a new life quickly turned into the harsh reality of exclusion and systemic racism. From the moment they set foot in the Holy Land, they were treated as second-class citizens, their presence often marked by suspicion and disdain. They were segregated into lower-income neighborhoods, placed in schools that lacked resources, and faced discrimination in the job market. Ethiopian Israelis, despite their cultural ties to the land and their desire to contribute to society, found themselves excluded from the very fabric of the nation they had been told was their home. The tragic death of Solomon Teker in 2019 at the hands of Israeli police serves as a painful reminder of the deep-seated racism that permeates Israeli society. Despite protests and calls for justice, the Ethiopian community continues to face violence, discrimination, and a lack of recognition for their contributions. This story is not just about the Ethiopian-Israeli community. It is a call for us all to recognize the systemic injustices that persist in every corner of the globe. The struggle for justice that Ethiopian Israelis face is mirrored by communities around the world, where black people are denied the same opportunities and protections as others. It is a reminder that the fight for equality and justice is a fight for all of us. We cannot afford to turn a blind eye to the suffering of others, no matter how far removed we may feel. Justice is a collective responsibility. Now, let's turn our attention to the plight of Afro-Iranians. Unlike the Ethiopian Jews in Israel, who arrived with the promise of a safe haven, Afro-Iranians have lived in Iran for centuries, their roots deeply entwined with the country's history. Yet, despite their long history in Iran, they remain invisible in the national narrative. Afro-Iranians, descendants of East African slaves, live mostly in the southern provinces of Iran, where they face extreme poverty and limited access to resources. Their contributions to Iranian society are largely ignored, and their struggles are invisible to the rest of the population. In a country that prides itself on its diverse ethnic groups, Afro-Iranians are excluded from the national conversation, their voices silenced in a society that refuses to acknowledge their existence. The invisibility of Afro-Iranians is not just a social oversight, it is a form of systemic exclusion. Afro-Iranians are not counted in national censuses, their experiences are erased from history books, and their needs are ignored by the government. This erasure has left them with limited access to healthcare, education, and employment opportunities. As a result, Afro-Iranians live in impoverished neighborhoods where they face discrimination at every turn. Despite this, they continue to persevere, continuing to fight for their right to be seen, to be heard, and to be recognized as full members of Iranian society. The struggle of Afro-Iranians is not just a fight for visibility, it is a fight for recognition, for their place in the national story, and for the fundamental human right to exist as equals. Both of these communities, though geographically and culturally distinct, share a common struggle: the fight for recognition, equality, and justice. Their stories reveal the harsh realities of a world where some are afforded opportunities simply because of the color of their skin, while others are pushed aside, erased from history, and denied the same opportunities. These struggles are not isolated. They are part of a larger global issue, one that transcends borders, cultures, and political ideologies. The fight for justice is not just about one community's battle for equality. It is about the collective fight for the dignity and humanity of all people. The lesson we learn from the Ethiopian Israelis and Afro-Iranians is this: justice is not a privilege. It is a right that belongs to every human being. When one community is denied its basic rights, we are all diminished. When one group is oppressed, we are all complicit if we do not speak out. The injustice faced by Ethiopian Israelis and Afro-Iranians is not their burden alone to bear. It is our burden as well. We must ask ourselves, how long will we stand idly by while injustice continues to thrive? How long will we allow racism and exclusion to remain unchecked? But amid the pain, there is hope. The resilience of the Ethiopian, Israeli, and Afro-Iranian communities is a testament to the strength of the human spirit. Despite the systemic barriers they face, they continue to rise. They continue to demand justice, to fight for their place in society, and to work toward a future where their lives are valued. Their stories remind us that change is possible. Change may not come easily, but it is always within our reach if we are willing to fight for it. The strength of these communities serves as a beacon of hope, a reminder that no matter how dark the world may seem, there is always light on the other side. We must not wait for change to come to us. We must be the change. The fight for justice is not one that can be won by a few. It requires all of us to stand together, to raise our voices in solidarity, and to demand that the systems of power that perpetuate inequality and injustice be dismantled. The struggles of Ethiopian Israelis and Afro-Iranians are a call to action for all of us. We cannot wait for someone else to lead the charge. We must take the first step. If this message has resonated with you, if it has touched your heart and opened your eyes to the struggles of these communities, I encourage you to take action. Share this video with others. Let the stories of Ethiopian Israelis and Afro-Iranians be heard far and wide. Let us work together to create a world where justice is not a dream, but a reality. A world where everyone is seen, heard, and valued for who they are. Together we can make a difference. Together we can change the world. And if you believe in the power of this message, if you believe that these stories deserve to be heard, I ask you to show your support. Your encouragement, your energy, and your belief in the cause are invaluable. Every like, every comment, every share helps spread this message of justice, equality, and recognition. Thank you for being part of this journey. Together, we can create a future where every voice is heard, every life is valued, and every person is treated with the dignity and respect they deserve. The fight for equality and dignity is not just an issue for some. It is a universal battle that resonates deep within the hearts of all people, everywhere. In the struggles of Ethiopian Israelis and Afro-Iranians, we witness the impact of systemic racism, exclusion, and dehumanization. These communities, though separated by geography and culture, share a common thread. They are fighting not just for recognition, but for the right to exist as full equal members of society. In Israel, Ethiopian Jews were brought with hope, under the promise of sanctuary and acceptance, to a land they could finally call home. Yet this promise was soon shattered by the harsh realities of systemic racism and exclusion. Despite their deep roots in the Jewish faith, Ethiopian Israelis have been treated as second-class citizens, constantly fighting for the right to be seen as equals. They face discrimination in nearly every aspect of life, from the schools they attend, where resources are scarce, to the jobs they are denied because of the color of their skin. Ethiopian Jews, brought to Israel to fulfill the Zionist dream, are still treated as outsiders, often pushed to the periphery of society. Their daily lives are marked by systemic challenges, higher unemployment rates, racial profiling by police, and a society that often refuses to acknowledge their pain and struggles. The story of Solomon Tekke, a young Ethiopian Israeli killed by the police in 2019, is not an isolated incident. It is a painful reminder of the systemic violence these communities endure. His death sparked protests across Israel, but even in the face of such a tragic loss, the Ethiopian Israeli community continues to demand justice, a demand that has often been met with silence. But what we must realize is that this injustice is not just a problem for the Ethiopian Israeli community, it's a problem for all of us. When any group is excluded or oppressed, the fabric of society itself is torn. Justice cannot be selective, and we must demand a world where the lives of all people, regardless of their background, are treated with the dignity they deserve. In Iran, Afro-Iranians face a different yet equally painful kind of exclusion. Afro-Iranians, who have lived in the country for centuries as descendants of African slaves, are among the most marginalized communities in Iran. Despite their deep cultural and historical ties to the country, Afro-Iranians are denied the recognition they deserve. Their existence is often erased from the national narrative, their struggles ignored, and their contributions overlooked. The government does not even track their population, further deepening their invisibility within the broader Iranian society. In the southern provinces, where many Afro-Iranians reside, they live in poverty, with limited access to healthcare, education, and job opportunities. They are relegated to the margins of society, living in communities that are denied the resources that others in Iran take for granted. Afro-Iranians have long been excluded from the national conversation, their voices silenced by a society that refuses to acknowledge their humanity. Despite this, they continue to fight for recognition. They continue to demand to be seen, to be heard, and to be treated as equals. Their strength and resilience in the face of such overwhelming adversity is nothing short of extraordinary. Yet their struggle is not just theirs alone. It is a call to all of us to confront the deep-seated racism that persists in our societies. Their fight is our fight. When we allow any group to be denied their humanity, we all lose. The struggles faced by Ethiopian Israelis and Afro-Iranians are not isolated. They are part of a much larger global issue of racial injustice and inequality that affects millions of black people across the world. Whether it's in Israel, Iran, or any other country, the stories of exclusion and erasure are familiar. But within these struggles lies an undeniable truth. Change is possible. These communities continue to fight for justice, to resist oppression, and to demand a world where their lives are valued. Their struggle serves as a reminder that, no matter the odds, the human spirit is capable of incredible resilience. And that is where hope lies. It lies in the continued resistance of those who are oppressed. It lies in the refusal of Ethiopian Israelis to accept the status quo, in the determination of Afro-Iranians to be seen and heard. It lies in the knowledge that justice will not come easily, but it is within our reach if we are willing to fight for it. The fight for equality is not one that can be won by a few. It requires all of us. It requires collective action, collective responsibility, and the willingness to stand with those who have been marginalized and silenced for far too long. When we look at these struggles, we are confronted with the larger question of what kind of world we want to create. A world where some people are erased and excluded, or a world where every person is seen, heard, and valued. The choice is ours. The stories of Ethiopian Israelis and Afro-Iranians are not just stories of pain. They are stories of courage, strength, and resilience. They are stories that remind us that, no matter the barriers we face, we have the power to rise, to demand justice, and to create a world that reflects the values of equality and dignity for all. And as we reflect on these powerful stories, we must ask ourselves, how long can we continue to stand by while injustice persists? How long will we allow systems of exclusion to define who has a voice and who does not? The time for action is now. We must not wait for others to lead the way. We must take responsibility for the world we are creating, and we must rise in solidarity with those who have been silenced for too long. The fight for justice is not over. Together, we can create a world where everyone has a place, where everyone is seen, and where everyone is treated with the respect and dignity they deserve. If you believe in the power of these messages, if you believe in the power of change, I invite you to support this work. Share this video with others, spread this message, and help make the world a better place for everyone. Your energy, your belief, and your support are invaluable in the fight for justice and equality. Together, we can change the world. Let's rise together for a world where justice reigns, where equality is a reality, and where no one is ever erased from the story. The fight for justice, for the recognition of every human being's dignity, is never an easy one. The stories of Ethiopian Israelis and Afro-Iranians are stark reminders of the lengths to which oppressed communities must go simply to exist without fear and to be seen for who they truly are. Yet, even in the face of systemic racism, violence, and exclusion, these communities have not given up. Their stories are more than just cries for justice. They are calls for us to step up, to challenge the injustices that persist, and to stand in solidarity with those whose voices have been silenced for too long. Ethiopian Jews in Israel, who arrived with the hope of a better life, were instead met with the reality of being treated as outsiders. These were people who had been promised safety and integration, yet what they found was exclusion, racial profiling, and systemic barriers to success. The schools they were placed in were underfunded, the job market was largely closed to them, and the constant discrimination they faced wore down their spirit. But they fought on. They demanded not just to survive, but to thrive. The tragic death of Solomon Tekke, a young Ethiopian Israeli who was killed by the police, highlighted the deep-seated racism that Ethiopians continue to face in Israel. His death ignited protests, but the Ethiopian-Israeli community continues to face systemic inequality, and the government's response remains one of silence. This failure to acknowledge the humanity of Ethiopian Israelis is not just a local problem, it is a global issue. The marginalization of one group affects us all. When we allow entire communities to suffer in silence, we are complicit in their oppression. Similarly, the Afro-Iranian community faces a struggle of invisibility. Despite being in Iran for centuries, Afro-Iranians, descendants of African slaves, brought to the country through the Indian Ocean slave trade, are virtually erased from the Iranian social narrative. The Iranian government has not acknowledged their existence by tracking their population, and their voices are seldom heard in the media. These people, who have contributed to the culture and economy of Iran, continue to live in the shadows of society, marginalized in impoverished areas, and denied the opportunities that others take for granted. Invisibility can be just as violent as overt racism. When people are made invisible, their struggles are ignored and their voices are silenced. Afro-Iranians face this silent form of violence every day, denied access to healthcare, education, and economic opportunities. Their invisibility within the broader Iranian context is a reminder of how easily the marginalized can be forgotten. Yet, despite these hardships, both the Ethiopian Israeli and Afro-Iranian communities continue to rise. Their strength is not only in their perseverance, but in their unwavering demand for justice. They are fighting not just for their own rights, but for the rights of future generations. These communities refuse to be reduced to their suffering. They are teaching us all the power of resistance and the importance of standing together against systemic injustice. The lesson we learn from their struggles is clear. No one can be truly free as long as others are oppressed. When entire communities are denied the right to live with dignity, we are all diminished. The Ethiopian Israelis and Afro-Iranians are showing us what it means to rise above oppression. Their fight is not just for recognition, it is for equality, for justice, and for the right to exist without fear. It is a fight that belongs to all of us. Their resilience is a call to action for anyone who believes in the dignity of every human being, regardless of race or nationality. This fight for justice is global. It's not just about Israel or Iran, it's about the world we want to live in. The stories of Ethiopian Israelis and Afro-Iranians are reflections of struggles faced by black communities all over the world, from the streets of America to the far corners of Africa and beyond. Their struggles are the struggles of millions, and their resistance is the resistance of us all. When we fight for their rights, we fight for the rights of everyone who has been marginalized, forgotten, or erased by society. However, there is hope. In every story of injustice, there is the possibility of transformation. The power to change the world lies within each of us. When we stand in solidarity with the oppressed, when we use our voices to amplify their calls for justice, we become part of the solution. The resilience of Ethiopian Israelis and Afro-Iranians is a powerful reminder that no matter how long the struggle lasts, the human spirit cannot be broken. They are teaching us that even when society chooses to silence us, we have the power to speak, to resist, and to demand the world we deserve. The call for justice cannot be ignored any longer. The fight for racial equality is not just the responsibility of those who are oppressed, it is the responsibility of everyone who believes in a world where every human life is valued equally. We must all stand together, united in our commitment to fighting racism and injustice in all its forms. We cannot remain passive while entire communities continue to suffer. We must act now. As we witness the resilience of these communities, we are reminded of the strength that lies within us all. We are all capable of creating change, of lifting each other up, and of demanding justice. The fight for equality is not a fight for the privileged, it is a fight for the marginalized, for those whose voices have been silenced for too long. Together we can build a world where everyone is treated with the dignity they deserve. If this message has resonated with you, if it has opened your eyes to the struggles faced by Ethiopian Israelis and Afro-Iranians, I invite you to share this message. Let's continue to spread the word and lift up the voices that need to be heard. Every like, every comment, every share matters. Together we can build a future where justice and equality are not just ideals but realities for all. Let's honor the resilience of these communities by standing with them. Let's be the change the world needs. Together we can make a difference. Thank you for taking this journey with us and for being part of a movement that is determined to create a world where every person is seen, heard, and valued. As we draw the curtain on this exploration of profound struggles faced by marginalized communities, the stories we've heard echo not just within the borders of Israel and Iran, but in the hearts of all those who have ever faced injustice. The plight of Ethiopian Israelis and Afro-Iranians is not a distant issue, it's a deeply human issue. It's a reminder of how the color of one's skin, the place of one's birth, and the roots of one's history can still determine their right to be treated with dignity. It's a fight we must all be a part of, because no one is truly free while any one of us is oppressed. In both Israel and Iran, black communities are fighting to be seen, to be heard, and to be treated as equals. Their struggles are not unique, but resonate with every black community across the globe. The Ethiopian Israelis, who arrived with the hope of a new life, are still grappling with the reality of systemic racism, exclusion, and violence. In the streets of Tel Aviv, in schools, in the workforce, this community faces challenges that seem insurmountable at times. Yet they continue to rise. Despite the hardships, despite the discrimination, Ethiopian Israelis stand firm, pushing back against the forces that seek to keep them invisible. They demand not just equality, but respect and justice. Afro-Iranians, on the other hand, fight an equally invisible battle. For generations, they have lived in the shadows of Iranian society, their history erased, their struggles ignored. Despite their long-standing presence in the country, Afro-Iranians are excluded from the national conversation. Their pain is not acknowledged, their contributions overlooked, and their rights dismissed. Invisibility, as painful as overt racism, is a subtle weapon. It's not just about being ignored, it's about being denied the right to exist fully within the context of the nation. But even in the face of this erasure, Afro-Iranians continue to fight. They continue to resist the systems that have long tried to silence them, and they continue to demand the recognition they deserve. These stories are more than just about the pain they represent. They are stories of resilience, courage, and an unwavering fight for justice. Ethiopian Israelis and Afro-Iranians, despite the hardships they endure, continue to make their voices heard even when the world tries to shut them out. They serve as a beacon of hope, reminding us that no matter how powerful the systems of oppression may seem, they can be challenged. Justice is possible. Change is possible. It just requires all of us to take action, to stand in solidarity, and to fight for the humanity of every person. The lessons we take from these communities are crucial. It is clear that injustice, no matter where it occurs, affects us all. When we allow one community to be silenced, when we allow their suffering to continue without consequence, we are complicit in the larger system of oppression. The struggles of Ethiopian Israelis and Afro-Iranians are not isolated. They reflect the same systemic issues faced by black communities around the world. They remind us that the fight for justice is a global one. It is a fight that demands our attention, our action, and our solidarity. But hope remains. We cannot ignore the strength of these communities, their refusal to accept the status quo. Their resilience in the face of unimaginable adversity proves that no matter how long the road to justice may seem, it is a road worth walking. Their fight is our fight, and together we can create a world where no one is left behind. A world where every individual, regardless of their background, is seen and heard, and where justice is not just a dream, but a reality. As we reflect on the powerful resilience of these communities, it is important to ask ourselves what role we play in the ongoing fight for justice. Do we stand by and watch as others suffer, or do we step forward and use our voices to amplify theirs? The Ethiopian Israelis and Afro-Iranians are not asking for much, only that they be treated as equals. But for them, and for millions of others around the world, this simple request is still not a reality. We must be the ones to change that. We must be the ones who speak up, who act, who demand justice. If you have found value in the stories we've shared today, if these voices have touched your soul, I invite you to join us in spreading this message. Share this video, share the truth of what these communities face, and let's work together to ensure their voices are heard far and wide. Every like, every comment, every share helps keep these conversations alive. It is through our collective effort that we can make a lasting impact. Your support, no matter how small, makes a difference in this fight for justice. If this video has helped you see the world in a different light, if it has inspired you to think deeper about the inequalities that still exist in our world, I humbly ask for your support to help continue this work. Your encouragement is invaluable, and it helps fuel the creation of more content like this that shines a light on the stories that too often go untold. Thank you for being part of this journey. Every step we take together brings us closer to a world where justice, equality, and dignity are not just ideals, but a reality for everyone. I am deeply grateful for your presence in this community, for your energy, your belief in change, and for your commitment to standing with those who need us most. Together we can create a future where no one is erased, no one is forgotten, and every person's voice is heard and valued. Thank you, from the bottom of my heart. Your support means more than words can express. Together, we can make a difference. Let's rise, let's speak, and let's make this world a better place for everyone.